to Beyond Resume, where careers and analytics come alive. This is where we explore the intersection of innovation and human experience, the stories that shape leaders, and the principles that drive success in our field. I'm Kaushik, an advanced analytics and AI professional with over 20 years in the industry and a decade of leading teams. Today's guest is someone who has been doing something very specific for the last 22 years. Building things, not only managing things that were already built, not advising on things that others would build, actually building AI platforms, commercial products, center of excellence that never existed before he walked in. He is the SVP and AI CoE leader at Marsh, one of the world's leading risk management and advisory firms. He has built AI organizations across global GCCs, launched a commercially successful MLOps framework at a startup, and driven AI transformation across pharma, healthcare, banking, retail, and in agriculture. He is also a keynote speaker, a startup advisor, and one of those rare people who writes on LinkedIn with the precision of someone who has actually done the thing they are writing about. His posts on agentic AI governance or what we call Frugal innovation is irreversibly rule regularly makes me stop and think. He started as a developer and then become a team lead, a project manager, a SFE practitioner. Then in 2016, he made a pivot into AI and has not looked back yet. Vijay, welcome to Beyond Resume. Really, really glad to have you here.
Thank you, Kaushik, for having me. First of all, really appreciate for that long introduction. Looking forward for the discussion.
Great. Now, Vijay, the first question that I wanted to check with you is from your starting days. Like you started as a developer, moved through team lead, project manager, agile platforms, a very structured delivery path. Then in 2016, you made a hard pivot into AI when most enterprises had not even figured out what to call it yet. What happened in 2016? Like, was it a moment, a person, a project? What really pulled you out of a successful delivery career into something that was barely defined then?
So, Kaushik, to talk more about my in, movement into the field of AI, so I need to talk a little bit more about what happened before that as well, right? So I did my BTech in computer science and engineering from IIIT Hyderabad. Fortunately, I got a chance to understand some of these subjects like computer vision or natural language processing as part of the BTech undergraduate program at IIIT Hyderabad. At that time, it is more of a research in nature, and also at IIIT we have a language translation center, research center. I also got an opportunity to work on some of those language projects on NLP side at that point of time. Subsequently, after joining the industry, I started my career mainly as a developer on C++, Core Java, and many of these databases and other technologies. So it's more of like what is required for you to solve the business problem at that point of time. That's how my career started. And as you mentioned that it progressed from developer to team lead to project manager. I also worked on some of the large scale transformation um, agile projects for
Hmm.
mobile app development. So later, um, the technology of AI is moving from research to the commercial implementation. So we have digital transformation where enterprises are moving their data into the cloud, and we have the large scale infrastructure available to process that data. So many other times, the way I look at it is that how can we solve the customer problems in a better way? So we are able to build the apps, we are able to do the descriptive analytics. Now, how can you make the predictions
Hmm.
from that data that is available with us, right? So that's when it's always for me to look at business problem first and then see what is the right kind of technology to solve this problem. My earlier understanding about this AI technology during BTech helped me to easily think in that direction that okay, this might be the right area to apply and these technologies to solve the business problem. Initially, we started solving problems in machine learning,
Hmm.
and subsequently we started working on deep learning, computer vision, and early versions of the transformers. Say, you might know about GAN, GAN and other transformer architecture, both architecture that we used to use to solve some of the problems in healthcare and the banking domain. So, so it's more like not technology as a choice. It's more like what is required for you to solve the business problem.
Got it, got it. So, and then, so to my understanding, of course, you started as a very traditional career path that someone with a computer science background would take, and your focus or priority sort of shifted towards solving more business problem, and what you found that now AI is a broader umbrella, and you kind of uh, captured the entire or all the personas beautifully. Like you first maybe started with descriptive part of analytics, then you moved to predictive part of analytics, and then finally the cognitive part, which captures your deep learning or computer vision sort of a technique that industry started using from mid 2010, like 2015 or something, that I remember that when all these technologies were coming in play. One follow up on that. Uh, uh, of course, this kind of technologies helps us solve some of the problems which were not solvable probably 15 years back. Like I started my career, I come from a stats background, and I started my career with traditional predictive modeling. So at those times, traditional predictive models were pretty much capable of solving the problems that business partners had. But we also faced similar challenges during 2015 or 2016 because we are not able to serve some of the problems through traditional models. But one problem that I faced that time was lack of data, because for traditional modeling we had the data, but for, let's say, for CNNs or any sort of deep learning, if I say, you need a large data, sometimes unstructured data. uh, how did you solve that problem before applying those techniques?
Yeah, very important question, Kaushik. Deep learning requires large volume of data, and we faced this problem multiple times at that point of time, right? So, uh, initially when I started, even for machine learning also, there was a time that where we created a lot of synthetic data. One of the challenges that we faced is that we are working on a healthcare data from US. As per the regulation, you are not supposed to access that data from here and use it to train the model. But we want to build those kind of early predictive model. So what we did is that we looked at the distribution of the data, and we understood those parameters, and using the distribution we created a synthetic data. That was one of the first thing that we did to even train the machine learning model. The same problem existed when we moved into the field of deep learning. uh, Deep learning side also, we used to create a lot of augmented data. There was one project which we worked on deep learning to detect the objects, kind of weapons from the images. So you get very minimal data set, but you apply different type of augmentation to extend your data set. And that is one of the way that you can extend your data set. And there was one other project. It's a very interesting project that we did on the healthcare space. We are trying to optimize the MRI image quality. And so essentially that we take the data from an MRI scanner, which is of a low resolution data. Typically what happens is that MRI takes a long time to acquire the scan, right? This goal of our goal at that time is that how can we build an AI solution to reduce the scan time? What happens is that if you reduce the scan time, the number of samples that you acquire from the scanner will be very low, right? And now we thought that we can use AI to enhance the low scan images to the high scan images so that old scanners can be reusable for a longer period of time. That's the business model. So, one of the biggest challenge that we found there is that typically you have the high resolution images from the scanner, because in a real world healthcare, you will never take a low resolution images from the real scanner. Either you need to have the access to the raw scanner data, then only you can do that. At that point of time, we don't even have access to that data. What we did is that um, this MRI data works in the frequency domain and image domain. The raw data is in the frequency domain, and the final output is in the image domain. Now we have the final output. We applied an inverse Fourier transform to move into the frequency domain, and we created an algorithm to do the undersampling in the frequency domain. And that's the way that you get the undersampled images, and you use those images and we feed into the GAN models to get the upsampling of the images. So that's also another area where we try to simulate the data which reflects the real world. So
Ex-
there are many situations where data is a big bottleneck, especially in the initial days for starting the AI model. So these are some of the ways where we try to create the synthetic data, or finding ways that how can you build that data which reflects the real world condition. But one caveat that I would like to highlight here is that, Kaushi, that um, the challenge is not to create the synthetic data. The challenge is to ensure that this data reflects the real world uh, distribution, right? So if you are able to take care of that, your solution works better.
Excellent, excellent. And I think taking up synthetic data has become a very common practice these days. But at that point of time, I think synthetic data was not the concept of synthetic data was not that popular. One connected question, I believe, along with data, one of the struggle that at least I faced was uh, the system performances, because we used to work in standard laptops, and deep learning, I mean, used to take ages to run. So how did you manage that? Like, did you kind of procure spatial provisioning like GPUs, or you had to manage some alternatives?
Initially, until 2019 or so, we were not using GPUs effectively. We are mainly reliant on the normal CPUs, and we have some on-premises systems which we are using to train the models. Um, Around in 2019, at that time frame, and early 2020s, that the time frame where we started using the GPUs. Um, the, we had GPUs from NVIDIA, mainly the cloud GPUs, and we used to use. I think the V100 is one of the early versions of the GPUs that we used to use frequently to train some of the deep learning models at that point of time. And as I said, GPUs are costly. Uh, right, availability is one factor. At that time, we don't have big challenge in accessing the GPU. The challenge is the cost. How do you control the cost? Because if you want to do multiple experiments, and those experiments will mm, require more GPU, and in some other cases, especially this healthcare use case that I was talking about, it you need to have the multiple GPUs, distributed training mechanism. But one of the techniques that we uh, followed is that there's a concept called spot instances on the cloud. They are not like dedicated instance, but those are the instances that you will get it 50 to 70% lower cost than the normal GPU. But the challenge is that we don't have the control on how long we can keep it. Those instances can go away at any point of time. So what we did is that we built the clusters in in a way that if one GPU goes away, how do you continue the training on the other cluster um, in parallel, right? So that's the way that we are able to reduce the overall cost of training and do more experiment to get the desired results.
No, I totally agree. I think it's not only about procuring a GPU, it's also about balancing the cost because, and again, probably I will come back to those cost elements later in our discussion today. But I think uh, this AI related techniques definitely opened a lot of avenues for the analytics teams to solve problems. But at the same time, when you look at the overall uh, P&L of what you were able to deliver versus what kind of costs you incurred, what I read out in some of the articles is that if that has not been used wisely, with the precision that you just mentioned, that how you were managing it, then you may be able to save a lot of bandwidth, efficiency, but when you take it the net save, it will not give you that kind of a return. I,
Correct.
I agree. Uh, Great. Now moving on to the COE part. Now, uh, and this was one of the questions that I was able to resonate the most because I have also built AI COE, and some of the challenges that I faced, I just wanted to understand from you that how you solved those problems or whether you faced those problems or not, because you have not just built AI COE once, but you have built it multiple times from scratch across different organizations. And you have also done in various type of companies like startups, service companies, GCCs, and all these are different beasts. Now, building an AI COE from zero, what I have at least experienced is that the name is glamorous, but it's not at all glamorous when you try to build it. There are budget related fights. There are skeptical stakeholders. There are dearth of talents who have never worked this way before. Uh, at least that's what I have faced. So I wanted to understand from you that what was the hardest moment, or let's say moments for you, and the ones where you might have thought that this might not work, like something that actually did put you on the edge while you were trying to build those.
Yeah, Kaushik. So uh, I think I built the CVs I think 4 times so far. Um, right, and as I said, from different companies, from service provider to startup to GCC. Yeah, it's completely a different experience. The expectations and the culture in each of these companies is completely different. There is no relation from one organization to the other organization. One of the, when I talk about the challenge, mm, I can say that the biggest challenge is to build the right team. For me in all these organizations, I think I can say that I spent most of the times in picking the right people and doing the mentoring, and especially in the initial days, for the first one or two CEOs when I was building it, So grooming the people on the technology, explaining the fundamentals of the technology, how concepts work, and helping them to solve the how the business problem is to be solved.
Yeah.
Right? Helping the people to, in fact, I can say that some of the complex problems that we solve, we need to look at the literature research, what is available and how can you use it and extend it beyond that. So reading the research papers nowadays is much easy, but at that point of time, picking the right papers and then understand the techniques defined in those papers. So many of these, uh, we need to groom the people. And one principle that I always followed is that I always look for people who are passionate and curious to solve the problems, even if they don't have a great understanding of the technology. Because my belief is that technology is changing always, but your curiosity and passion for learning should be there. And if we have curiosity and passion, that we can work together as a team, understand the problem, explore the options, do the experiment, and analyze the results. So that was one of the hardest problems I can say that among these companies. So fortunately, I can say that most of the times I can say that my best performers are the very junior people. Um, they are not the very senior people. So as I said, I picked up people who have passion, groom, and they give the best for you. When you are able to explain that what is your vision,
Hmm.
or what they are going to achieve, not only from a technical point of view, right? Why it is helpful, right? Especially when we are working in the industries like pharma, especially we work on some of the complex pharma use cases, drug discovery, and healthcare, and many of these industries. How do you connect the people to the bigger goal, right? And how do you motivate them? And subsequently, that how do you enable your team to understand what is available in that space from a technical point of view, right? And how can you solve this problem?
Yeah.
So this is what I consider is very, very important for anyone to start building. Of course, you need to have the right strategy. You need to get a buy-in from the stakeholder. These are all important, but these are not just specific to the AI CoEs. These are common to any of the industries that we will be part of.
Excellent. I think, in fact, you talked about the passion and the curiosity, and there I believe that I totally aligned with your experience, because that's what I have also seen, that there will always be those 10 to 20% of the folks in your team who are always eager to learn a new thing. They may or may not have a background. In fact, I have been fortunate to come across even freshers, fresh out of college, who didn't even know Python when they joined us. But when I talked about the COE concept, that what we are trying to drive, what are we trying to solve, plus this is something which is going to be a stretch goal for them, because they will have their business BAUs to solve. This is something for us to be future ready. So that's why we are looking for their contribution, and the people who raised their hand, again 15-20%, and they were the most passionate and curious about something, had that can do attitude, that yes, I'm trying to, I mean, they had the feeling that I am trying to contribute to AI COE because for my own benefit, not that I'm trying to do something for the enterprise. So that mindset definitely needed. No,
Yes.
I believe that one project which is out of your COE ventures is the MLOps. Now, MLOps, these days, people are working on LLM ops, pretty much depending on, based on very similar concept. Now, when I was working on MLOps, uh, I first reached out to some of the consultants to understand that what are some of the industry provided best practices that needs to follow, and then I aligned that with what all are available in our enterprise setup, and then we kind of developed something. So what I mean by that is, when I compare to what I built and what the consultant provided me with as the best structure, best services that you should be using, My framework was not at par. It was below par because not every services were available. The baseline was different. Uh, what I wanted to understand from you that when you worked on and built MLOps, how did you first start it? What made you start to pick up that project of MLOps? What has been some of your key learnings, if you could share with the audience?
Sure, sure, definitely. So, Kaushik, as you mentioned, when you look at solving a problem, there are many things that are common across multiple use cases, right? Say, for example, like how do you process the data, right? And how do you set up the training infrastructure? And how do you set up the serving infrastructure, inference infrastructure? Right? There are many other things that are common across multiple use cases. So, as part of building the COEs, I look at that where is our time going, right? What is essential? What is foundational for us to deliver in a quick time, right? That's when the thought process, like there are some building blocks that are required for us to build it, and then subsequently we can solve the use case, right? So in my first time when in my organization, we tried to implement this CI/CD pipeline more supporting from AI use cases in a very light way. Subsequently, when I joined this startup, see, we have a very specific goal in mind that how can you build products,
Yep.
and we want to solve the problems in a very unique way. So at that point of time, what we realized is that there are some players who are using the commercial frameworks, and there are people, there are companies who are doing it by themselves, right? So our um, value proposition at that point of time is that we completely relied on the open source stack, best of the breed stack, and we tried to build this framework by stitching those components, and we used to provide to the customers along with the source code. Our value proposition is that, say for example, if you have 4 or 5 use cases and if you want to deliver it, probably it may take 1 year time frame, right? I have built this reusable component. I will give it to you. You need to pay some subscription to this. Along with this, I have a team who can solve your business problem. Instead of taking 1 year to deliver all those 4 or 5 use cases, I can deliver it in 9 months, right? That's the value proposition that we project to the client. It was well received by the client, but the important caveat before this is that how do you find the right customer segment? Is the important thing that we need to look at it. So we targeted specific type of clients, innovation groups within large enterprises who want to do a lot of innovation and experiments, and where those people want more control on what they are doing, right? So we are providing access to what we are doing, and we are using the best of open source stack. They don't have to learn anything new, and they have access to what they are going to use. Second thing, we also targeted the startups who got the funding, and they want to launch a quick products in a quick time. And our reusable components in the framework help them to accelerate the time to market. So we find the right market segment, we use the right technology stack. In fact, we have gone through many challenges in this process. When you are using the latest version of these open source stacks, sometimes there are bugs in these frameworks. You need to fix those bugs to ensure that solutions is working fine. So we need to spend a lot of time in understanding how these works, figuring out the failures. Sometimes we fix it on our own. We miss some milestones, but it's a great learning. So I can say the biggest learning from all of this is that typically when you build solutions inside an enterprise, you look at how well people are adopting what you are building, right? But when you are trying to sell it externally, so then first question that comes into mind is that whether client is willing to pay for what you are doing, right? So in this case, we figured out that what is that unique value proposition we want to provide to the clients. We focused on that and we worked backwards to build those reusable components. Initially, we built a framework which supports all the industry. Later, we customize this framework into a reusable component specific to the industry and specific to the type of data and use cases that we want to process. That's where we are able to see more value and traction from the clients.
Excellent. So you started with a base structure and then you customized it to suit. I mean, you created a base reusable product and then you customized it for the different industry. Makes sense. Makes sense. Uh, the next one, Vijay, is a bit technical and something where I consider that I am just getting started, and that's agentic AI. LLM, of course, all of us have started using it, and it's been now at least 4 years. But agentic, what I have seen that at least especially for our regulated firms, it's still, I mean, the stakeholders are still skeptical in finding the right use cases which does not disrupt their clients' uh, experience with the firm. Now, when I went through some of your LinkedIn posts, what I have seen that you have been very specific and having a provocative point of view on agentic AI. That actually you said that autonomy is something that must be earned, not granted, and you have written about irreversibility rule, that the real risk with AI agent is not errors, it's irreversible actions. In a world where everyone now is racing to make agents more autonomous, you are essentially arguing for restraint. I'd be interested to understand why and what are you seeing in real deployments in the enterprises that makes you say that.
Yeah, another good question, Kaushik, right? Mm, Let me explain the key concept here, right? When we talk about agents, typically the way how agents are defined is that you define the goal and you provide the information in the form of context, and agent will plan and it will identify the optimal way to solve the problem and achieve the goal.
Yep.
Right? That's how typically agentic AI is defined. The reason why I'm talking about autonomy has to be earned, if you look at an enterprise or more specifically any of the regulated industry, we are always bonded to um, follow follow the regulation and follow the process. In an enterprise, generally I have not seen a process where you do things on the fly without prior plan, right? The steps in a process will be predefined, and we always ensure that is it regulatorily compliant, and then we define the workflows and we follow it. Earlier, we used to have the systems, we used to have the people who use the systems and completed tasks as per the process. Now, when we want to bring in an agent, are you going to bring in an agent and perform a task in a non-deterministic way or deterministic way? My point is that many of the enterprise workflows are deterministic. You know what you want to do, right? Your goal is defined. The only scenario that where you need to, if you want to process a large volume of unstructured data and try to figure out some information from the unstructured data, that's where you use LLM, where more of non-determinism might be beneficial. But in terms of moving from one step to the other step, every step has a validation criteria within an enterprise. You need to meet those validation criteria. So my point is that people are trying to create agents, and from the day one onwards, they are making it more autonomous. And you are trying to deploy so that agents automatically plan and reason and complete the task. But my majority of my use cases I have seen, they are all deterministic. The successful deployment of agentic AI within the production, they are all deterministic. Agentic AI is like an orchestration layer which will help you to connect the multiple processes within an enterprise and perform that handoffs seamlessly between humans and agents, and not only from humans and agents, from one department to the other department as well, right? That is the advantage that I can see. There are some key concepts that I want to make it very, very clear, right? When we talk about autonomy is nothing but how you want the agents to make a decision, whether a human is going to review a decision, whether an agent is making, or a human review is not required. When agency is nothing but can an agent works on a decision. Say for example, an agent identified that the inventory is low, right? Based on the forecasting models.
Yep.
And now it needs to plan for the inventory. Can it automatically raise a request to the supplier to get the inventory? That's what I mean by agency. So do you want a human to review before an agent make an action? The third thing is nothing but authority. Even if your agent is capable of doing both decision making and action, are you willing to give that responsibility to the agent without human verifying the information, right? So in an enterprise, you need to look at where there is a high risk, which of the actions are reversible or non-reversible, right? Non-reversible, high risky actions, typically you will not take a chance to have a, not even a 0.1% error, right? That's where you have more control and humans are going to drive the process there. And if an action is reversible and if it is of low risky and if you think that the value is higher than the risk and if you can revert the action, then probably you can automate it in as soon as. Right? So you need to really, really understand your workflows, understand the regulation, and understand which of these decisions and actions I can delegate safely to the agent. Another important aspect is that the operating environment where the agent works, tomorrow the environment changes, the external factors change, or the nature of input the agent is processing may change. So it is not always static. There is always some level of drift in the real-time environment. So you need to continuously monitor how your agent is performing. Let's assume that your agent, there's a drift in the input data or the environment where the agent is processing. Can you able to revoke the authority and agency of an agent so that every decision and action the agent is making, a human can review, right? So you need to have the ability to revert those decisions at any point of time in production, and then you are more guaranteed that your agent is not only working perfectly today, and it is more guaranteed to work safely in future, and you can take back the control at any point of time whenever it is required, right? That's what I am saying, that we need to have that. We always deploy our agents in a shadow mode, and once we see that their performance is better, then we increase the autonomy and agency. And when we see there is a drift in the environment of our data, that's when we revoke those permissions. That is the way we are making this process more controlled.
Got it. One situation that I have faced, and I wanted to check from you what you think about it, and it's about the human in the loop context. I mean, some of the leaders, their question was that if you plan to keep human in the loop in every, not only in agent, even if you are building an LLM, let's say you are building an LLM which will help you fetch, which will give you an interface where you can fetch key numbers. And now the suggestion was that there has to be a human in the loop who will review. The question was then how then you are saving tangible time. If for everything you deliver, you are asking me that there will be someone who will be reviewing this, and you can never be 100% confident that the agent or the LLM will produce the right results, then what's the point of investing so much of money? Because those are costly, building an LLM or agent. Have you faced such questions like there is always a trade-off?
Yes, this is another important area, Kaushik, right? The principle that I always follow is that look at the process and see which of the steps you can make it more deterministic. right? And second principle that I always follow is that when when you perform a task, validation should always be deterministic, right? Rule-based validation you need to have. So many times in an enterprise scenario, the process produces a defined output, many times which is known, right? You build a validation system, which again, my validation system is not based on the LLM. It's more of a rule based, based on expertise based. If you are able to define validation in a more deterministic way, you can eliminate human in the loop for many of the scenarios. The, that is where one of the things that is happening today is that many of the processes were not documented properly in enterprise. Many of the exceptions, edge cases were not defined correctly. In our in my scenario, many of the times we spend significant amount of time to build that institutional knowledge, codify how the process works, and then we try to build the system with AI and agents,
Yep.
so that you have every mechanism not only defining the process but also have a mechanism to validate how it is working, and you can make it automated. And there are only very few scenarios, as I said, if it's a high risky, non-reversible scenarios where human in the loop makes sense. Again, when you talk about humans in the loop, one of the best examples I can give you is that we are all using code generation tools, right? Now generating the code is much easier, but reviewing the code is a complex. Now, the review mechanism needs to change. Not like you give everything to a reviewer, just like dump everything. This is the output that I produce. Review it, right? Then no human can do that, and it's the most boring job that we don't want to do it all the time, right? So that is where we also spend significant amount of time. Even if there is a human in the loop also, when you pass the information from agent to the human, how are you briefing the human in a more structured way, saying that these are all the things that I have done. This is where I was confident. This is where I was not confident. This is where the review is required. That is the way that you are reduce the cognitive load on the human, and they can. It's much easier for them to review and approve the process wherever it is required. So my only recommendation is that if you don't see that how it performs certain things, don't approve. Right? If it is only explainable and if it is clearly evident that where you need to focus on, you do that. So start small, make things happen, codify the process, and define a right way to hand off to the humans with the right information. Then you can reduce the overall cognitive load on humans.
Got it. Got it. No, that's totally makes sense, and an excellent learning for me. I'm sure for the audience as well. Uh, One question on agent only. I am seeing two types of path that the industry is taking, and you know, roughly I can call those build versus buy. For example, if I am sort of going with Microsoft products, and then even Copilot can build agents by using your local data. So some folks are taking that path, whereas some folks are going for, let's say, if someone is using AWS, let's say Bedrock Agent Core. So, uh, where do you see, I mean, again, where do you see, just from your gut, where do you see that the industry in long run will move? Will they go via this, like having a vendor who is managing everything like Microsoft, and you are relying on them to build your agent, or you will have more of a free hand by using something like Agent Core?
See, my belief is that we need both, and it is going to be both. And the way I see is always like commodity AI, competitive AI, right? The one which is commodity, you always buy it. What you believe is competitive for you, that's where you build it, right? And especially you might not be building a new agentic framework, you might not be building a large model. That might not be the biggest advantage for you, but like what is the industry that you are operating in, what is the domain expertise that you have, right? And what kind of um, interaction that you are getting from the real world, which is unique that you can. So industries will companies will focus on building more of platforms, and you integrate with their ecosystem, upstream and downstream. And you need to decide as a company, are you going to be like a platform player, or are you owning certain upstream or downstream value, right? Are you going to be a service provider? So you need to define, you need to have clear vision that what role you are going to play in that big picture. And this value in the value stream and bottlenecks in the value streams are changing, right? They are not constant. And many times your competitor might not be in this your industry. Your competitor is coming from somewhere else. So technology is reducing the barriers. So so you have to really think about what is your future vision, what is your competitive advantage, which are the things that I need to own so that I can build a more longer competitive advantage, right? You better you focus on it, right? Some of the initiatives might be a big wins from 2 to 3 years down the line. Invest on it. There are certain things you can solve just by building the solution. You buy it, buying the solution, you buy it and use it and see the immediate value. And long-term durable advantage, that's where you need to focus a little bit more to be in competitive advantage.
Excellent. No, I totally agree. That's a great way of bifurcating, helping the leaders to take a decision, because I see that it creates a lot of confusion among them. Great. Uh, the next one is slightly on the human side, and I'm sure that you must have seen in multiple articles, news, that currently the industry is going through a shift, and people who are typically into middle manager role. I know that there is no uniform definition of whom you call a middle manager, but let's say that someone who is around 15 years or around 15 years plus experience, they are going through a lot of struggle. We see that there are pointed layoffs that's taking place, uh, especially into that segment. Now, one thing that I definitely understand, that skill gap could be one of the concern. And people are trying to go through certain training sessions, certifications, but quite honestly, that's not helping them in retaining their job. Now, you have been a super successful, not only a super successful leader in the industry, but also you have navigated your path and kept yourself relevant. So, what would be your guidance to them who are at maybe 15 years odd experience level, maybe trying out few certifications, but that's not helping? How they can keep them relevant beyond just going for a certification?
Yeah. So Kaushik, when we talk about the organization structure and the levels in an organization, there is always a thought process that how can we move decision making closer to the place where the work is happening, right? So if you have multiple layers in an organization, it used to take a lot of time to make a right decision. Right? So that's a bigger challenge till now. So now with the advent of these all these new technologies, it is possible that you can move decision making closer to the people who are working on it, right? So that's definitely an advantage from that point of view. So for the second point that you um, to your question, that right, what is the advice for these people? See, now we all have to think from a lens like, are we the person who are um, going to develop the solutions or do the core work, right? So future might be like you might not be doing the entire work on your own. You are working along with the technology, be it agents or a combination of multiple technologies, but your skill is helping those systems to be better day by day, right? So that's the primary skill that people at the lowest level required. People above them, they need to have the ability to think more strategically,
Okay.
right? So now there's a lot of competition, right? So how do you win the new markets, right? And what else can you do? So we now there's an opportunity for many of us because you don't have to do the day-to-day activities for most of the times, which the systems are doing. Can you leverage your capacity to forward thinking and see what else can you do, which is not possible earlier, right? Can you make it happen now, right? Start thinking in a direction and from a certification point of view, now the technology is moving much faster, and there is a lag between what is available through certification versus the pace at which the technology is moving, right? So the best recommendation that I provide to someone is that if you want to use technology and solve some business problem, start solving problems every day, right? It might be a small problem today, you can increase the complexity of problem solving day by day, but start solving the problems, right? Learning and applying that knowledge to solve the problem should happen in parallel, and it should be a continuous process. And if you do that for a certain period of time, obviously either you augment that with a domain knowledge or a product knowledge and a technology anyway you are trying to apply it to solve the problem. You build a skill, and that skill you can use it to build solutions for the future. You can do innovation, and from that innovation, you can able to find some successful ideas that you want to scale it, right? So use the time that you have currently to try out something new. For this, I always recommend to the teams is that typically um, when you want to do some additional activity which is not helpful for currently, you might not able to find a team to do it. My recommendation is that now use the technology, create the bandwidth in the lower segment of the people, and complete their work in 70% of the time. Now pick your top 30% people, top, not the what freely available people, right? Top 30%. Separate them and focus on new innovation. You may able to come up with new 2 3 ideas, take it to the leadership team, and align with the strategy and try to build something. Because you are already there in the industry for a good amount of time,
Yeah.
you understood how your industry works, how your domain works, and you have seen multiple products development over a period of time. Take that learning and create a bandwidth for the top performers and try to do something innovatively. I believe that many people will be successful by doing this.
No, that's an unique and excellent perspective, Vijay. In fact, I believe that with all these coding agents available today, even in fact someone with 15 plus years of experience, even if they want, they can build something of their own. They don't really need to write a code from scratch.
Other point, Kaushik, it's not necessary for everyone to develop the code because we need to have the domain understanding, right? Many of the complex problems that I solved over the years, I need to spend a good amount of time with the domain experts, right? So there are other skills that are required apart from coding, right? But my only suggestion is that pick your top performers, create a bandwidth for your top performers, create a separate group, and understand what is the strategy. You bring that strategic mindset. Now you have the best team, you have the tools, apply domain strategy, and figure out a way what new problems you can solve. Most probably you will be successful in creating a path to build those new solutions.
Got it. So, domain expertise is something that will create the edge. And of course, as you mentioned, that to get the job done, you will need your best people to work on those. But domain expertise is something that's where people would focus on. And I totally agree. Like certification, I know that that can help you get started if you have no knowledge, but that's not all. Probably the way things are moving so fast, following after you complete a certification, at least that's what I try to do and found it very helpful, is there are so many good YouTube channels who update you about the latest and the greatest developments. So pick just one or two of them, and now you have a baseline with the certification. Follow those, and that will give you an idea and help you to be relevant forever. And as you mentioned, at least in our industry, just reading, listening, watching doesn't help. You really need to build something to actually understand it. Great, great. Vijay, now we will be moving towards the lightning round, where I will be asking you a few quick questions and would look for answers that comes to your mind. No thinking, no preparation needed. Just share what the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay, ready?
Sure. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. The first question is that again something that you have written about your principle that what gets rewarded gets scaled. Uh, you sort of actually drew it from reinforcement learning and applied it to the org culture. If you could change one thing about how most organizations rewards AI related behavior, what would it be?
So Kaushik, many times we use a single metric and we always try to optimize it, right? My recommendation is that use multiple metrics to define that reward and pick the metrics like one metric from a business performance perspective, one metric from a culture perspective, and one metric probably from an ethics perspective. Then you can balance all and you can always build the right culture within an organization.
Great. The next one is that again you wrote about Workshop, AI generated output that looks polished but shifts the burden downstream. You are clearly worried about it. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is it right now across the enterprises you see?
I can say from the work that AI is automating, probably 50 to 70% is a concern at this point of time.
Okay.
But the good part is that technology is improving. That number may go down over a period of time.
Great. The third one is that you have written about Frugal innovation, the three-lane system, the exit lane, the pivot lane, and the fast lane. Most leaders struggle mostly with the exit lane because killing what isn't working. So, what's the hardest initiative you have personally had to stop, and how long did it actually take?
See, many times we are people. Uh, we always start the projects with emotion, right? We are emotionally connected to the projects. So when you are emotionally connected to the projects, it's very difficult to uh, kill the projects, right? So my belief is that you need to go with hard facts. We define the hypothesis, look at the results, and see what works and what doesn't work. Majority of my career, not just one project. There many times it's easy for me to say yes to an AA project, and very difficult to say no to a project. Why it is not at ready to start it? And there are certain projects in the healthcare domain which we need to defer. And the one of the use case that I talked about, the MRI use case. Initially, we have to stop it because we have not figured out the right way. Because we are consuming the GPUs, we are spending money, and we have not figured out a way to undersample the MRI scans. We stopped it, but we went back and spoke to the domain experts. Maybe I think around 6 months or 9 months later, we started it again.
Okay. The last question on the lightning round is, in last 1 hour we have covered agentic AI, governance, innovation, GCCs. When you are completely offline and not working, what does that typically look like? Like, what is a part of your life that has nothing to do with AI?
So I'm big sports fan. Majority of my learnings in my career are from sports, right? Even with the school days, I used to play a lot of sports. I used to build teams, and I used to compete many times with the seniors. So So I play chess, I play tennis, I do watch a lot football and many of these tournaments. So that's a good way for me to re-energize myself.
Excellent, excellent. And that also helps you keep fit in this fast world. Great. Vijay, last question. Someone's listening right now who is exactly where you were in 2016. They are in delivery, program management, or in a technical role. And they can feel that AI is going to matter, but they don't know how to make the leap. Not, I'm not looking for the LinkedIn version of advice, but the real version. What do you actually wish someone had told you then in 2016?
See, many times you need multiple technologies to solve a real world problem. It's not like AI versus other digital technologies. That is not true version. You need all of them to make it successful. That's the first thing. Second thing is that I would recommend everyone to be very good in fundamentals. And if I get a chance to go back to 2016, probably I would say that start a deep tech startup. And many times it's my belief that we need to use technology in a right way to help the society and the people. And there are many good problems in healthcare, pharma, and agriculture, education that we can solve using new technology. And recently, the space tech as well. So, invest a lot in understanding the fundamentals of the technology and a deep understanding of the domain. That way, we can unlock many problems in various domains.
Great. Thank you so much, Vijay. This has been exactly the conversation that I was hoping for. It was honest, specific, and full of hard-won perspective. Thank you for sparing your the time on a Sunday and sharing all these unforgettable perspectives that you shared from your life experience with the audience.
Thank you, Kaushik, for all those wonderful questions. And I'm hoping that in future we can leverage technology to solve many of the real world problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone for listening through. Next time, we'll be diving into another fascinating conversation with a leader who is shaping the future of analytics and AI. Until then, keep learning, keep connecting, and remember, your career is more than what's on your resume.